Just imagine a car setting out to avenge its owner's death, hunting down the killers who took his life. That's exactly what unfolds in our story today. It begins with a police officer named Detective Rayner, who, under the cover of darkness, was in hot pursuit of a gangster's car. Rayner called for backup from police headquarters, but they told him to wait. Impatient, he charged forward alone, determined to catch the criminal. Before long, the gangster swerved into a narrow alleyway, so Rayner rammed his vehicle from behind and then leaped out. He pried open the gangster's trunk and found a young woman inside, bound hand and foot. Rayner tried to free her, but right then the gangster appeared and launched a surprise attack on him. Rayner fought back, striking so fiercely that he subdued the gangster. Ultimately, he arrested the man and was about to haul him off to the station. Before leaving, though, Rayner handed the woman a sturdy rod, giving her the chance to exact some personal revenge. Overcome with rage, she repeatedly struck the gangster's skull with that rod. A few days later, the entire gang was brought to court, where James, a government prosecutor, laid out a host of severe charges against them. All the evidence pointed to the gangster's guilt, so the judge found him culpable and sentenced him to death by electrocution. However, his crimes were so egregious that he wasn't executed in an ordinary manner. Instead, in full view of onlookers, he was placed in a chamber and subjected to a barrage of electric shocks, which ended his life. Afterward, in an underground fight club, we see a group of criminals called cyber criminals, gang members who had integrated weapons directly into their bodies via advanced technology. They were all talking about the gangster's recent execution. In fact, this gangster had possessed a special chip containing incredibly valuable classified documents. Now the chip rested in the hands of James, the government prosecutor. Worried James might discover incriminating information on it, the criminals decided they would steal the chip back from him before he could find anything that threatened them. Meanwhile, James, his big case against the gangster, finally won, celebrated by purchasing a flashy new car. He then invited his ex-girlfriend, Daria, out for dinner. The truth was, James liked everything done on his terms and tended to boss Daria around, which was the reason they'd split in the first place. Now he was making an effort to reignite things with her. Following dinner, he planned to show off his new car to impress her. He wanted to take her for a drive, but Daria said she simply wanted to go home. Angered, James drove her back, but before dropping her off, he ominously warned that he could go to any lengths to get her back. Hearing such a threat only confirmed to Daria that James was exactly the same as ever, and in a huff, she returned to her house. Later on, James was on his way to the office when he got a call from his assistant, Yasha, who reported that he had discovered how to extract hidden files from the gangster's chip. James quickly stashed that chip in a concealed compartment in his car and rushed into work. Inside, Yasha explained that hacking the chip would require illegal methods, so he suggested they secure a court order first. But James, not one to waste time, was uninterested in legal niceties. He tried opening the chip's data himself, only to get a message from his security guard. The guard claimed to feel sick and wanted to leave early. Unbeknownst to James, that guard had already been killed by the cybercriminal gang, and the criminals themselves were about to barge into James's office. The moment they did, James snatched up his gun and fired at them. Yet one of them, a cyborg named Henry, had a shotgun literally built into his arm, which he used to strike James and overtake him, tying him to a chair. They demanded James hand over the chip, but he flatly refused. Another cyborg, Ash, used a blowtorch on James's laptop and threatened to burn James's face in the flames. Though wounded, James rose and attacked Henry, only for Henry to grab James's arm and break the bone. Then he pinned him to the chair again. At that point, a gangster named Penn realized James wouldn't give up so easily. So he activated a drill built into his fingertip and brutally drove it into James's eye. Finally, Henry dragged James to the window and hurled him out. He plummeted, crashing onto his brand new car below, dying instantly. James's blood covered the vehicle, soaking it thoroughly. By the following morning, the police had found James's corpse. Determined to find the killers, Detective Rayner took charge of the investigation. Meanwhile, the entire gang went to see a shady scientist named Talon, who had transformed them into cyborgs in the first place. They still had not located the chip, which infuriated Talon. He demanded they retrieve it as soon as possible. That led the gang to start planning their next move, tracking down anyone linked to James, hoping to discover the chip's whereabouts. Meanwhile, James's new car, Lazarus, ended up in a junkyard. A worker, finishing his shift, was just about to lock the gate when he heard the car's engine rev. Sure enough, it was that same Lazarus, stained with James's blood and possessed by James's enraged spirit. Curious, the worker moved closer to investigate, but the car suddenly lunged forward, striking him violently, crushing him. Then it sped out of the junkyard into the night. The following day was James's funeral, and Daria arrived to pay her final respects. Afterward, she returned home, only to receive a call from Detective Rayner, who wanted to question her about the case. Still shaken and upset, Daria told him she was not yet ready to talk. Elsewhere, Henry, the cyborg who had confronted James, exited a nightclub, only to find Lazarus stalking him from the shadows. Realizing he was being pursued, Henry tried to escape on foot but ended up cornered in an alley. Lazarus had him pinned down. Panicked, Henry yanked open the back door of a nearby store and dashed inside, believing himself safe. However, Lazarus crashed right through the large glass entrance, easily following him in. Henry attempted to use his bionic arm to hold the car back, but Lazarus pushed relentlessly onward, crushing him with a single brutal impact. Early next morning, Rayner arrived to investigate the new murder scene, where he ran into his colleague, Gravenstein. Gravenstein remarked that Henry's homicide might be somehow connected to James's killing. Rayner found the link suspicious, so he investigated more deeply. His first move was to visit Daria at her office, but she asked him to meet her at a restaurant instead. Once there, Rayner explained that the killers hadn't simply murdered James for personal revenge. They were hunting something specific. Daria claimed she knew nothing about it. As he prepared to leave, Rayner cautioned her to be on guard, as James's killers might come after her as well. That evening, returning home, Daria encountered precisely what Rayner had feared. Far off in the distance, Ash had been watching her. In addition, a policeman, stationed there by Rayner, was standing guard outside her house. Feeling uneasy, Daria summoned her friend Mila to stay overnight with her. The two friends were relaxing, chatting merrily, while outside Penn quietly approached the policeman. He suddenly drove his drill right into the officer's skull, killing him instantly. Within moments, Penn and two more thugs broke into Daria's home. At that time, Daria was asleep in her bedroom. One of the gangsters slipped into the living room, where Mila was dozing. He tried to rouse her, causing her to scream in terror. Hearing the scream, Daria also woke. Mila struggled to flee, but when she rushed to open the front door, she discovered it was locked. The gangster then strangled her from behind, ending her life. Elsewhere, Daria was trying to evade the attackers. Suddenly, she retrieved a gun from her drawer and shot one of the criminals point-blank in the head. Penn arrived, furious to see his comrade dead. At that moment, Daria realized Mila was also gone, so she resolved to kill Penn. Unfortunately, her gun ran out of ammunition, so she dashed outside, darting into a nearby patch of woods. Penn pursued and tackled her, prepared to use his drill to finish her off. At that exact second, James's spirit-possessed car, Lazarus, appeared. Its headlights blinded Penn. Seeing Daria in mortal danger, James's spirit commanded Lazarus to kill Penn. The gangster scrambled to his vehicle, fleeing as fast as he could, but the ghostly car wasn't about to relent. After some time, Penn thought he had shaken the pursuer, only for Lazarus to materialize on the road in front of him. Panic gripped him. Lazarus slammed his car, hurling it off a bridge. Though the car was totaled in the crash, Penn survived. Yet Lazarus refused to stop there, crushing him just as viciously as it had Henry. Later, police arrived at Daria's house to find her still traumatized. Rayner brought her to a hotel for her own safety. The next morning, he dropped by with some food, leaving her locked in the room while he went off to gather more evidence. However, the moment he left, Daria smashed a window with a chair and climbed out. She insisted she wanted to help find James's and Mila's murderers, promising Rayner she would follow his lead until the case was solved. Left with no alternative, Rayner took Daria along to the data market, a shady bazaar of illicit goods and information. Upon arrival, Daria revealed she had visited this location before. Indeed, some time ago, she had once been involved in a criminal operation herself. A short while later, they entered a warehouse that housed a guru who agreed to provide them with intelligence in exchange for money. When Daria handed him the cash, the guru put on his virtual reality goggles and explained that the leader of the cyber gang was named Talon. Before he could divulge anything else, one of Talon's men showed up unexpectedly and shot the guru. In retaliation, Rayner instantly fired his pistol, killing that attacker. Yet in the blink of an eye, Ash and her thugs surrounded them. Rayner urged Daria to escape while he held off the assailants. Running away, Daria found herself in an archive room, where, to her shock, Ash was already lying in wait. Ash demanded the chip, but Daria insisted she had no idea where it was. Furious, Ash attacked, sparking a fierce hand-to-hand struggle. As it turned out, Daria was well trained in combat, matching Ash blow for blow. At last, Ash activated the flamethrower built into her arm, spewing flames across the archive. Forced to duck behind some lockers, Daria luckily spotted her gun on the floor. She fired a shot that somehow caused Ash's own arm to swing around, igniting Ash's body with scorching fire. Ash, even set aflame, tried to keep after Daria, but Daria used that moment to slip outside. The enraged, burning cyborg continued the chase, only for Lazarus to come crashing in and, just like Henry and Penn, viciously ran Ash down, killing her on the spot. Seeing Lazarus suddenly appear, Daria felt a jolt of fear. Approaching the car, she realized with horror that no one was in the driver's seat. Then James's voice resonated from inside, but the shock was so overwhelming that she fainted on the spot. Later, she regained consciousness in Raynor's house. Raynor tended to her wounds, so she thanked him. Glancing around, she noticed photographs of Raynor and his daughter on the wall. Tragically, a gangster seeking revenge on Raynor had murdered his daughter. Feeling genuine sorrow for him, Daria admitted she was starting to have real feelings for him. Raynor felt the same, and the two kissed. Meanwhile, from a distance, Lazarus watched them quietly. At the same time, the scientist Talon had begun amassing a veritable army of cyborg soldiers. He told them how the haunted car, Lazarus, had brutally crushed some of their comrades. Talon ordered them to destroy the car at any cost, promising to reward whoever succeeded by implanting brand new weapons into their bodies. The next day, Raynor updated Daria with fresh information about the case. Daria told him that the night Penn and Ash had cornered her, James's car had suddenly appeared and attacked them, thereby saving her life. She speculated that the car, named Lazarus, was possessed by James's spirit. Raynor still didn't believe her, suspecting she was traumatized by James's death. Angered, Daria stormed off. Raynor decided to follow her on his motorcycle, but out of nowhere, Lazarus confronted him. The car accelerated menacingly, and Raynor was forced to scramble up some stairs and duck out a nearby door. He hopped onto another motorbike and sped off, only to find the phantom car giving chase. In desperation, he entered a parking lot to lose it, but Lazarus rammed him from behind, throwing him to the ground and injuring his leg. The car prepared to finish him off, but Raynor scrambled up a ladder and escaped once again. Having found a brief refuge, he received a call from colleague Gravenstein. Raynor told Gravenstein to head to his house right away to protect Daria. Little did he realize that James's assistant, Yasha, was eavesdropping on the conversation. At that point, it became clear that Yasha was actually in league with Talon, secretly helping him orchestrate James's murder. Yasha dispatched men disguised as police officers to Raynor's home to apprehend Daria, convinced that she might know where the chip was. Within minutes, these fake cops tricked Daria into trusting them, bundled her into a vehicle, and drove off. But then the cyborg army spotted them and joined the chase. Right when it seemed the criminals were cornering Daria, Lazarus pulled onto the road, forcing the gang onto a rough detour. The ruse worked. Some of their vehicles smashed into each other, though a few still managed to keep up with Daria's kidnappers. Meanwhile, the fake cops intended to deliver Daria to scientist Talon. The moment she realized they were imposters, she brandished a handgun and forced them to pull over. She made them step out of the car, and that's when she saw Lazarus roaring closer at high speed, mowing down the criminals instantly. However, the rest of the cyborg army soon surrounded them. Lazarus charged forward, suddenly launching itself into the air, landing in front of Daria, prepared to shield her. Daria fled in one of the thugs' cars, and Talon called her, proposing a deal. If she handed him the haunted car, he would spare her life. Daria agreed, leading Lazarus to an abandoned building. Upon arriving, Lazarus saw the gang training their guns on Daria's head, so the car darted forward to save her, only to plunge into a hidden pit. The cyborgs immediately opened fire, bullets tearing into the vehicle from every angle. One cyborg peered inside, surprised to see no driver. Searching thoroughly, he finally discovered the hidden chip. Elated, he told the others to cut the haunted car into pieces. After claiming the chip, the gang turned to Daria. She demanded they honor their part of the deal and let her go, but they insisted they could not leave any witnesses alive. When she tried to escape, one of them pressed a knife to her throat and forced her into a dark room. Meanwhile, the cyborg army hauled the dismembered remains of Lazarus to a scrap pit. Later, an old mechanic stumbled upon the battered car. Puzzled by the extent of the damage, he decided to repair it himself. He scrounged up parts from another old car, one rumored also to have been possessed at some point, and grafted those components onto Lazarus. Elsewhere, Raynor deduced that Yasha was collaborating with Talon. Yasha offered a deal. If Raynor agreed to keep quiet, he and Daria might live. Outraged, Raynor attacked Yasha and his bodyguard, holding Yasha at gunpoint and demanding to know where Talon was hiding Daria. as well as what made that chip so crucial. Yasha explained that the chip contained incriminating records that could expose Talon's entire criminal empire. Despite being injured, Raynor hurried off to find Daria. By then, the old mechanic had finished revamping Lazarus, now a blend of modern and vintage design. He tried test driving it, but couldn't even get the engine to turn over. Confused, he stepped outside. Suddenly, the car roared to life, violently running him down and tearing through the city streets once again, determined to locate Detective Raynor. Raynor zeroed in on Talon's hideout, starting with the nightclub where Henry had been killed. Unaware that Talon's lair was hidden beneath it in a maze of tunnels, Raynor combed every corner. Meanwhile, Talon was pressuring Daria to join him for real, holding her captive in his underground lair. She pretended to agree, simply to survive, but Talon demanded she prove her loyalty by killing Yasha, since Yasha had leaked intel to Raynor. Cowering, Yasha pleaded for his life, but Daria showed no pity. She doused him in liquor and gulped some herself, as if actually preparing to burn him alive. Unexpectedly, she flipped her mouthful of liquor onto Talon's face and ignited it with her lighter. Then she stabbed a surgical blade into Talon's eye, slipping away as he howled in pain. Writhing, Talon set Yasha ablaze with a dropped lighter before calling his men to chase her. Moments later, Daria ambushed a guard, stole his gun, and pressed on. Raynor, too, had broken into the nightclub by then, brandishing his pistol at yet another guard, demanding directions to Talon. Before the guard could respond, Lazarus stormed in, crushing anyone unlucky enough to be in its path. Its main target, though, was Raynor. Amid the chaos, Raynor spotted the guard darting through a hidden door, so he followed him into an underground passage. Daria ran headlong into Colt, a hulking cyborg. Though she fought valiantly, he was far stronger. Colt unsheathed a blade built into his arm, slashing at her viciously. Daria dropped low at the perfect moment, causing Colt's hand to lodge in the wall. She snatched a nearby axe, hacked off his arm, and finished him right there. Only Talon himself remained, roaming the tunnels with a large automatic weapon, determined to find and kill Daria. After a tense search, Raynor finally located Daria, and they hid together. When Talon drew near, Raynor landed a powerful punch to his face, but the possessed car, Lazarus, had traced Raynor's scent down into the tunnels, and it now burst onto the scene. Spotting Talon, the car slammed into him. Seizing the chance, it pivoted at high speed and split the scientist in two. The cyborg gang was now in ruins. Leaving the building, Daria muttered that as long as that haunted car remained intact, they would never have peace. She noticed a crate of dynamite lying nearby and asked Raynor to set a timer on it. Soon after, Daria approached the car, calling out to James's spirit, "I'm no slave of yours. You hear me? I'm not going to dance to your tune." The moment she said that, the spirit grew furious, and Lazarus roared forward, intending to run her over. But right at the last second, Daria leapt aside, letting the vehicle collide with the box of dynamite. A thunderous explosion rocked the area, nearly killing Raynor and Daria as well. In the aftermath, we see paramedics loading the wounded onto ambulances, Daria among them, lying on a stretcher. Everyone sighed in relief, thinking it was finally over, until through the haze of smoke, that diabolical car reappeared. Lazarus rammed into Raynor first, then nudged Daria's stretcher, so she toppled directly into the car's interior. With no hesitation, the vehicle sped off toward a deep ravine. Summoning all her wits, Daria tore pieces from within the car and tossed them out. At precisely the right instant, she dislodged something crucial, causing the possessed vehicle to halt right at the cliff's edge. She scrambled out, gave it a shove, and sent the car tumbling down into the ocean below. Gazing over the cliff, Daria finally exhaled in relief, until the closing shot reveals that, even submerged in the watery depths, this demonic car still endures. If you enjoyed this video, remember to give it a like and subscribe to the channel. We'll meet again in the next video.